Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we're taking a look at Moana 2. Yes, the Disney sequel is out. Original one came out in 2016, I think. So, looking forward to talking about it. You know, maybe it's for kids, but hey, we cover a little bit of everything here on Off Script. All right, we're adults. We'll talk about Moana 2. We went and saw it. We'll let you know what we think. We're also going to take a look at Interstellar. 10th anniversary show's out. Don't know if you've heard. Andy and I got tickets to go see it in 70 millimeter IMAX. Glorious film presentation. A reel that had been in an IMAX warehouse. We got to see it. Got trucked all the way out here to us, and we almost made it to the end of the show. Stick around for the story, and stick around for IMAX Interstellar, which is really a presentation worth talking about, and also, just general thoughts on the movie. 10 years looking back. We're going to talk about the Golden Globes. The nominees are out. We're excited to talk about it, let you know what we think. Big flowers for Emilia Perez, by the way. Good God. A film we covered on this show. You might not have seen, so stick around. We'll tell you about that. We're going to talk about the trailer park, some upcoming trailers. New Snow White trailer in front of Moana 2. Got to talk about that. 28 years later, from director Danny Boyle and writer Alex Garland. The Brutalist. The Brutalist. We got to talk about The Brutalist. Before we get to all that, we got to talk about the news. Before we get to the news, we just want to take a quick minute to talk about what we've been watching in the last couple weeks, because we've been away. All right, a bit of a pre-show scuttlebutt. Get in the mix. Tell you what we've had our eye on outside of the things we aren't formally covering on the podcast. Unfortunately, normally I'd throw to Andy here, and Andy would fill us in with the host of films he's watched. But lately, he hasn't watched much of anything. Andy, what do you had going on?
So, no, I haven't watched a lot like I normally would have, especially over something like the Thanksgiving break that we had. But I have been doing some more reading. I've been reading the Wicked novel by Greg McGuire, I believe, which is very, very different from the musical. It's very much inspired by the book. And I remember I saw a post that was like, hey, if your kids love Wicked, do not buy them the book. Do not let them read the book. And I was like, oh, what's this about? And so I've been reading it, and it is wildly different. It reads more like Game of Thrones a little bit. Like there is a lot of explicit violence, explicit sex. It's much more political. I'm almost amazed that Stephen Schwartz was able to pull the musical he did, because it's so wildly different. The musical is just, it's much more family friendly, audience pleasing kind of thing. The book is just wildly different. I'm about 3/4 of the way through, so I'll report back whenever I get to the end of it.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but I'd heard the same. Christine's read it, so she told me a little bit about it. That it's very different. So it's cool. I think that you're reading it. A little bit of show research, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation when Wicked Part 2 comes out, because you will at least have some insight into what happens, whereas I currently don't really know where that musical's headed. So we'll get there together. Would recommend, won't recommend to fans of the show? What do you think?
I love the first half is pretty good. I'm at the back half, and it's kind of slowed down a bit. So I'm hoping that it'll kind of trudge through this section. I've read past where the first movie ends, so now I'm completely into unknown territory. And I haven't seen the musical, so I don't know what the second half of the musical is like either. So it's all going to be a surprise next year.
I'm wondering if audiences are in for the same fate when the movie comes out and part 2 is like drastically different from part 1. I genuinely don't know. It could be all the same, but we'll see. If you've seen the musical, if you read the book, write it to the show. Mail it off scriptfilmview.com. Tell us what you thought. We'll talk about it. But before we get to news and whatever's next, really quick, a note on what I've been watching. Because I wrote down way too many movies here. I've been going nuts on Christmas films. I'm just going to blow through them real fast. They're not really worth talking. I mean, they are worth talking about, but like on a different show, a different sort of conversation. So if you see me in the wild, you can ask me about it. But otherwise, I've been busy with The Holdovers, so rewatched it. Love The Holdovers from last year. Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa Claus Coming to Town, The Year Without a Santa Claus, Rankin Bass Classics, The Muppet Christmas Carol, director Brian Hansen, shortly after Jim Henson's demise, Rocks, Nutcracker from 93, that's the Macaulay Culkin one that they had an ad for on your VHS of the Pagemaster, Hundreds of Beavers from 2022, which was on YouTube, and is a good time, and I would recommend, honestly, it's not a bad time. Miracle on 34th Street from 94, White Christmas and then 54, and Klaus from 2019 on Netflix. Christmas season is upon us. Also, something I haven't been watching because I was looking over my top 10 list. I got to go back and start watching my top 10s again, because the top 10 lists are shaping up. I don't know about you, Andy, but like I'm filling mine out, and I need to go back and revisit. It's getting tough. It's getting tough to pick a top 10, but we got some good picks on there.
It's tough because
Yeah.
Sorry, it's tough with the top 10 because there's so many films that we need to see that just aren't going to be out in time. There's like 3 films coming out on Christmas Day. There's a bunch of the Golden Globes just came out with a bunch. So it's things like Queer, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan movie, Nosferatu, Baby Girl. Like there's all this stuff. So, but that's just how the top 10s go. We can only do what we've seen.
I know. Typically, for new listeners of the show, typically what we do is a top 10 at the end of the year. And then in like January, February, we may circle back and be like, hey, here's some other stuff that we saw and liked that we haven't had, like didn't get the chance to see in 2024. But like, we'll get around to it. Top 10s are coming up though. Subscribe to the show. You can hear our top 10s. Anyway, that's enough plugging the show. I got to talk about the news. First story this week, it's already on the screen if you're watching live. Jeremy Allen White is joining The Mandalorian and Grogu. Yes, the bear star, right? Carmi. He's going to be in The Mandalorian and Grogu, which is weird because I saw the role he was going to be in on Twitter and I thought it was a joke post. And then I realized it was from like a real film account that I followed for a while. Andy, who is the bear going to be playing?
He's going to be playing Rota the Hutt, which is the son of Jabba the Hutt, which I guess is from the either Rebels or Clone Wars. It's from one of the animated properties, so it's a character that already does exist. So he will just be voicing. He will not be a physical character, but we'll be lending his vocal talents to Rota the Hutt, and we're going to see what that looks like. I remember Disney in the last couple of months they came out and said that Star Wars is a nostalgia property and that they don't really plan on doing anything new ever, and it's always just going to be new interpretations of existing areas of the canon.
So funny. Star Wars is so cooked. Rota the Hutt. I know it's a character from 2008. Hollywood Reporter says that they were in the Clone Wars movie from 2008. So, you know, and like you said, they're a nostalgia property. But also, like, man, I just feel like I have aged out of this property. I just feel too old for Star Wars now. Like, there's no, who's going to care about the Mandalorian and Grogu, right? What adult in your life? And the answer is not many, but kids will, probably, right? If Disney markets to them well enough, like, which they usually do. I feel like the Mandalorian Grogu is going to be the Star Wars for babies movie, right? Like it has to be. I don't know what else it could be, right?
I mean, probably the Mandalorian started really strong, but it's taken forever to finish. I mean, the first season came out in 2019, which is kind of hard to believe. That seems so long ago. So it will have been 7 years from when that show started to where its final movie, which was going to be season 4, but they decided to turn it into a movie. It's just so long between it. No one's going to care by then, but it is finished. They have finished shooting it officially, and it will be coming out not next summer 2026, May 2026.
Yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to mention. They finished shooting this movie. It's done. I'm sure they'll do some post-production and some reshoots, but for the most part, the meat of it is done. It's not coming out for another year and a half. They're going to sit on it. Like, that's crazy to me, man. I know they work in long timelines, but that's nuts. Like, that is so much time for Disney to sit on a movie and just like advertise loosely, I guess. Hopefully build a more of a Star Wars universe around it so they can get another picture out. What do you think?
Yeah, they're definitely, I mean, they want to kind of pick up production on the Star Wars films. They've had such a hard time getting them off the ground at all. The Daisy Ridley thing got canceled, but another trilogy might be happening. I don't know. I think but they are going to kind of wait to see how this does before they really put things into production again.
I know. And I shouldn't judge Jeremy Allen White. I should wait and see how he does. He might be good as Rota the Hutt. Rota the Hutt? Rota the Hutt. Yeah, I got that. Our next story, also from Disney. Chris Evans is returning to Marvel for Avengers Doomsday. Weird reception on this one, man. I feel like just like RDJ got announced as Doctor Doom, Chris Evans, Captain America, coming back to Avengers in an undisclosed role, right? Who knows? He could be anything. I just feel like people are not as excited as maybe Disney would have hoped. What do you think? How do you feel about this?
I mean, I think it's just more indication of creative bankruptcy. One of the things that we've noticed in post-Endgame Marvel is that they haven't really invested in their characters like they did, because the first Captain America movie is not great. It's okay. It is fine. But they invested in that character. He got 3 more solo movies, a bunch of team-up movies, and Chris Evans became a household name. Everyone came to love the character, but they had really invested in it, and now they're not doing that with any of their modern characters. Like Shang-Chi, haven't seen him, who knows when we'll see him again. Eternals, same thing. They're just not Marvels, they're just not really investing in the newer properties, and now they're just going back to the well and then be like, well, and we don't really know what role Chris Evans is gonna be, other than they seem to be doing this timeline stuff or multiverse stuff where they can, they'll bring back Steve Rogers from another universe so that Chris Evans can play him again, and that's what it'll do. I hear they're doing the same thing with Fantastic Four, that we'll see, the cast of the previous two Fantastic Four movies probably show up at some point.
Right. It worked great in Spider-Man, so we should just continue doing that. Like, nostalgia properties are worth it. You give the
Till we're
actor or
90.
actress a check. Yeah. They come out for a half-day shoot, get them in the movie, bing, bang, boom. Everybody loves it. I am not stoked about this. Like, just bring them all back. Why'd you ever stop making Avengers movies, you fools? You should have just made 19 more of them, right? Like, I don't get it. What's the vision? Where are we going? Who is helming this ship? Apparently the new Avengers movie is going to be directed by the Russo brothers, which also feels like a miss. Like, did anybody see Gray Man on Netflix? It was god awful. And yeah, their last Avengers movie was good, but that's like movie by executive. They had so many people working on that thing. It's hard to say that these two genuinely had a lot of creative input, and based on their independent work, they didn't. Because if they had run those movies, it'd have been bad. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong. Like, maybe I'm too old for Marvel. Maybe I'm too old for Star Wars. But this kind of stuff just makes me drive towards movies like The Brutalist with like the biggest rose-colored glasses, hoping that I'll see something like that makes me feel something or something exciting, because Disney just isn't delivering. We're going to talk about Snow White also after our Moana review, another Disney banger. But I just, man, I don't know. Yeah, like, I see Star Wars and Marvel news, and that's just no excitement. There's no dopamine coming out of that drip. You know what I mean? How about you? Am I crazy?
Well, it used to be they would make an announcement so people would get hyped, but then they became very bad about the follow through. Blade was announced in 2019 and was just recently canceled 5 years later, and they kept teasing. They're like, no, it's getting pushed back. It's getting pushed back. And that's the thing. Nothing is exciting because they don't really follow through. And now they're so scared to do anything different or to keep investing in their heroes, that their newer heroes, that it's getting lame, and it's getting, just not exciting. I do think that both this Star Wars movie and Avengers, Doomsday, Doctor Doomsday, I think both those movies will probably do fine. But Marvel's in a very hit and miss part of their development now, because it used to be just everyone would go no matter what. A mediocre movie would still make a ton of money, but now it's basically got to be a sure thing, a home run for people to get off the couch and go to Marvel.
Yeah, we might have some assurances in a 2023 interview that Chris Evans did with GQ when he talked about the idea of returning to Marvel if it felt right. He said, quote, "I wouldn't want the black eye if it felt like a cash grab, or if it didn't live up to expectations, or if it just felt like it wasn't connected to that original thing." Most recently, we saw him in Deadpool and Wolverine in a role that was charming, I think, and unique. Hopefully something cool shakes out of New Avengers, and he's not just evil Captain America, because like RDJ's Doctor Doom is just so, like, I don't know, dude. It doesn't excite me. I'm sure it excites somebody out there. Maybe we should get them on
crowd
the show
erupts.
defend it. I know, I don't. Crowd erupt. Right? Yes. The average film goer just loves it. One more story out of Disney before we jump to Moana 2 regarding Moana 2's incredible performance at the box office. Dude, how much money did this movie make? Were we tracking for it to make $1 billion? Is it still on the way to make $1 billion? Where are we at?
Right. So we're going to cover a couple of weeks of box office here, because the Thanksgiving weekend was huge. Moana 2 opened up to a massive $225 million domestic, almost $400 million globally. And Wicked and Gladiator also did really well. It was the biggest Thanksgiving kind of ever. And I think this is the biggest opening for an animated film also. So breaking all kinds of records. Great time for theaters that have really suffered this fall. And this week, Moana 2 just crossed $600 million after just 2 weeks. It's on track to make over $1 billion, because you got to hit these high numbers pretty early, 400 or 500 million in the first 15 days, and then because then it's going to drop off kind of dramatically. But I think it'll be the third Disney film this year to cross over $1 billion, and it's a certified hit.
Real creative bankruptcy at Disney. You know what I mean? Like if I was an executive sliding into a new role there and looking forward to like a storied 20, 30-year career to round out like my fat resume, I would absolutely be in the, hey, let's make sequels for a decade boat. If I was trying to save my own job and working at Disney, if I was trying to make people money, I would say, let's just make sequels for a decade. Why would we make anything like new or unique? We'll make Pixar's Elio. That looks like it's going to do okay. We'll make, God, whatever else Pixar had announced that they were going to do, which looks fine. The Beaver movie, right? That looks fine. And then let's do Inside Out 2 and make $1.2 billion. And then let's do Moana 2 and make probably $1 billion. Like it's like the math adds up. I get it. I see on paper why doing sequels is the money, but boy, it's just not exciting in the audience side of things. You know, on this side of the screen, it just is not. Just does not do it for me. I know we're going to talk about Moana 2 here in a second. The movie's fine. I'm surprised personally that Wicked is not doing better overseas. That's something that I figured would be a shoe-in, but apparently China does not have the affinity for the Wizard of Oz like America does. They don't care at all about that movie, and they don't have the musical, so they don't care about the musical. So like the Wicked movie is just, I don't know. They're apathetic. It opened like 4th in China, I think.
Yeah, the Chinese market is very different now. It used to be China could save your movie, and we used to pander a lot to Chinese audiences in the early 2000s. Your movie could bomb here and be a hit in China, or it would help boost it. And now, basically no American movies do very well over there. Part of that is just it's a cultural difference. They're not interested in American culture as much or American film. Also, Chinese filmmaking has greatly improved over the last decade, so they're getting better homegrown films. But it's still doing pretty well. It's just about crossed 400 million. It's probably going to stop around 600 or so. It's still doing really well. Gladiator 2, not quite the phenomenon that everyone had hoped. I think it's just about crossed the 300 million mark, but it's doing pretty well. And Interstellar actually did about 4.5 million on its 10-year re-release in IMAX and I think in traditional theaters as well. So Interstellar getting some money there as well.
Dude, we got a 70 millimeter IMAX screen by us, one of 15 in the country and in the world, I think. And yeah, they're round the clock shows. They added overnight
2 a.m. showings,
2 a.m. and 5 a.m. showings. Yeah, and they're still like regularly sold out. Crazy. Honestly, yeah, the Interstellar numbers remind me of like Leica's Coraline coming back around in 3D and making like $5 million in a weekend. And they're like, okay, we're just going to keep putting this movie out and I can't blame them. I would too. Like every 6 months, I'd crank Coraline around, right? Or like put that in theaters next to Nightmare Before Christmas every holiday. Interstellar hopefully gets a 20th, right? Like I'm excited to talk about it. First, we need to talk about Moana. And before we jump into it, I just want to say, I didn't mean for this to be a Disney hit piece. That was not what I intended when I opened up the show here. So I want to talk about what I like about Moana 2 because it's not a bad time. It's really not. For all the news stories of me being like Disney's making mistakes. All right, I don't know how to run a giant company. Clearly, they're doing their best. Their movies are obviously making money. So with that, we should jump into it. I'm taking the summary on this one, so please excuse my clumsy delivery. This is Moana 2. So, after 2016's Moana, the story of Moana 2 picks up basically right where we left off. Moana is a young ocean explorer leaving her tribe on their small island with her canoe and her trusty pig and chicken to travel the ocean and hopefully find other signs of life, find other humans or beings, that there are things out there just beyond the horizon, right? Fortunately, she kind of finds something in the beginning of Moana 2, heads back to her island and picks up a couple of friends to build a larger canoe and quest out together to discover if there is other humans out there, if there are other things out there just beyond the sea. But on the way, she may encounter a couple of old trusty friends and maybe some former enemies that might get in their way. It is Moana 2, and I'd tell you more about the plot, but honestly, I don't recall a lot of the names, and I think it's because there's a lot of characters in this movie, and also it's for children, and I'm an adult. And I shouldn't open an interview that way. That's not very positive. I should say that what I do like about this movie is how good it looks. I like that it moves efficiently. It's like 90-something minutes. Songs are okay. For what it's worth, Moana 2 is good, I think. But definitely maybe not for me. Andy, what did you think of Moana 2?
So it's definitely very different from the first one, I think. It started life as a Disney Plus series. We were going to get Moana the series, and they decided to turn that into this film. And you can really tell for two reasons. Number one, it's incredibly complicated. There's so much going on plot-wise. There's a lot of people, kind of hard to keep up with. But also, it seems like it's aimed at younger audiences, even more than the first one is. Like, it's what I call a good babysitting movie. You put it on, have it babysit the kids for a couple of hours. The visuals are really stunning. That's probably the best thing about it. It does look great. Lin-Manuel Miranda did not return to do the songs, write the music, and you can really tell. The songwriters are kind of hurt by that sentiment. They said, well, everyone's going to be singing it in a week. And I was like, I doubt it. Like, I couldn't sing you one song. And I used to blast the Moana 1 soundtrack when it came out. That soundtrack is so good. And this one's pretty forgettable. It's also, there's this theory that if there is nothing in the theater, then whatever is out is going to be successful. And there's a little bit of that. Like, this was the only real family friendly movie that came out over Thanksgiving. And it's like, if it had any competition, it may not have been as successful, but it was like, well, what else are we going to take the kids to see? Not Wicked, certainly not Gladiator 2.
Right. In fact, Wicked and Gladiator 2 like kind of gave ample space to the holiday, and we're like, hey, we'll get out a week ahead of time. Like, they scheduled those out early. Disney slides right in with Moana 2. It's a perfect fit. They can get it on a bunch of screens. It's great. And I think, yeah, in that respect, it's done fine. But as far as like the actual movie goes, I think it's just okay. I think it looks really good. I need to start there and end there. This movie looks amazing. Like, from the smallest details, right? Like the sand on the beach to the way the water moves, like the light you can see in the trailer that we're running is nuts. Like, everything looks great. The bloom is fantastic. Like, the ocean has never looked so good. It looks fantastic in Moana 2. The visuals are on par. But the music's not as good. And like, it's not as funny, and it's kind of forgettable. And there's a few characters who seem like they have purpose and then just totally vanish from the movie. Towards the wrap up, as the film is like reprising one of the songs from the previous movie that is notably more memorable than most of what's happening here, I leaned over to Christine and was like, hey, did they, like, when I got up and went to the bathroom, did they address what happened with this one character? She was like, no. And then they do it in like a mid-credits scene. And I was like, okay. I was wondering, because I thought it just literally forgot about a character it had introduced. And it doesn't. It just doesn't have the time to get to him. It has to move very efficiently because, like you said, it's structured out of the show. It was going to be 8 episodes, and they were going to have these crew members on Moana's boat that all kind of had a little bit more time and like story dedicated to them. And they have unique character designs for that, but they're also just kind of flat and one note. And namely, Moana does not get a lot of time in this movie. She's off screen for like half of it because it has to kind of hang out with other people. Dwayne Johnson makes a return, of course. Maui is back. Very exciting. Like, if I'm selling toys, this is exactly what I need. But you're not launching any franchises, and Disney's not trying to. Like, it's safe. It feels like a very safe movie, a safe adaptation of what came before. It'll play for kids. We'll get some toys in stockings for the holidays. Moana 2.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Maui, Dwayne Johnson's character is also not in like the first half. He's like in some sort of prison, has to be broken out. So he's just not in the first half. And I was like, they were saving on budget by doing that because he's such a big part of the first one. It is so complicated, and that's part of how you can tell it came from a series, because there's so many plot points. You have Moana is trying to locate other like Polynesian tribes across the ocean. Maui's been taken prisoner. She has to free him. They have to fight some lightning god to do a thing. Like, there's so many plot points. It's so complicated.
Yeah. I do like that the characters come along for the ride, namely like the pig character that was left off of the boat in the first one. Didn't make any sense. I was like, I would feel like that thing would sell stuffed animals like you wouldn't believe. Instead, they took the chicken. So this time they're like, we got the pig. Great. You also get like a charming like technical kind of character, a mechanic of sorts who works on boats. She's very charming, has a streak of blonde in her black hair. You get this like big brawly guy who's really like a sweetheart and a himbo and is nice and likes to do art and paint. And then you get like this old crotchety farmer character who does not fit in at all. And Maui, of course, who they pick up like along their journey. That's your like demigod. It's a lot for one little boat, like for sure. It starts to feel full. But the movie moves really quickly into its third act. Like, we're on our way. We got our crew. We're going over here. We got to get to the thing. Like, That's all good. You get some clever returns from the previous film. Maui's transformations, I think, are all nearly the same. You get the same hawk and the same shark and the same, like, he pretty much does the same tricks. His tattoos are the same. Uh, Same. Like, it's a whole lot of, like, it's the same. It's the same as what it's supposed to be. And that's good, but, like, man, it just does not invite much creative criticism. Like, it's fine. The movie has the weakest of a pulse. You know what I mean? Like, outside of visuals, which again looks great looking movie.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the humor. It it seems really dumbed down in this, and this is where it feels like a babysitting movie, because there's lots of kind of Three Stooges type slapstick humor where people are tripping over each other or falling or bonking each other on the head, and it's just like, oh, this is here to entertain the babies,
Yeah.
and have them laugh. And there's a lot of it. And again, that's part of where, like, this is a less mature film than the first one.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that till you pointed it out to me. There are some laughs in the movie, and a couple of mine were literal physical stuff. It was like Tom and Jerry character gets hit by a frying pan and their head is like shaped like the pan kind of stuff. And I hadn't thought about it till you pointed that out later. You're like, most of the comedy in the movie is physical and simple. It's not a lot of dialogue. It's very simple physical action, and it's like, yeah, because it's for little kids. Like, that's who this is for. Like the parents can put it on Disney Plus later, and they can watch it. I don't know what kind of ambition I had for Moana 2, but I think if this movie does anything well, it underlines how good that first movie is, and like actually makes a lot of that stuff pop. Because a couple of those reprises of songs, you're like, oh yeah. Just the other day, I had a tune from a totally different song in this movie that was in the first film. It was like the theme of the ocean. It's like this soft vocal. And I had it stuck in my head and I couldn't place what movie it was from. Then I realized, oh, it's Moana 1, which I haven't watched in years. But it's just in this movie, just enough. And that's already like more interesting and gets your head turning more than like most of what's happening here. The songs here are okay. You get your I Want song, which is kind of the title track for the movie. You can't hum it. You can't hum the Moana 2 theme. You know what I mean? When you come out of the theater, like it's not as sticky of a film.
I could still sing you songs from Moana 1, and I cannot sing a single song.
I can hum 3 of them. I know. And so I think Moana 2 is fine. I think if it had been a show, it probably would not have done as good. I think adapting it to a movie was the smart money. But I hope that we get more Moana 1s. You know what I mean? Like, I hope we get more Inside Out 1s. Like, the sequels are cool if you're a baby. But if you're anybody with a brain and you pay more attention to this for longer than a few minutes, you realize, like, hey, come on. Like, I think audiences deserve something a little richer than this. This is okay. It's got 3 directors. It's got 5 writers. Dwayne Johnson produced it. And out of the 21 listed cast members, 4 of them are Dwayne Johnson or his family. So nearly 20% of the cast is The Rock. and by extension, like, family, which is great. Like, I don't know. Like, who is this for exactly? Like, is this 4 people or is this 4 executives to make money? And it's 4 people to make money. It's movie by business.
I heard it compared to when Disney was in its sequel heyday in like the 90s, when they were in their straight to DVD market, because that was a huge aftermarket to do. And so, but all those films were of lower quality because it was straight to DVD, and that's kind of what this is. And the worry is, this is what we're going to get more of, is the straight to DVD Disney sequel that we used to get 30 years ago. Now we're getting it on the big screen.
I know, and I feel that way. I worry about that, but then I have to stop and ask myself, like, is Disney worried about that? And like, I don't think they are. I think they want to make money, and like, they would rather have that. Like, I think of, like a starry-eyed executive who's coming in to make money and make a name for themselves at Disney, and they're like, how can I do it? We can make money over a decade. We can just make a bunch of sequels, and that's great, like, for the people who wear suits and don't really care. But like, for those of us who like to go to the movies for like an escape, like, Moana 2 isn't all that escapist. It's kind of just more of the same, but less so. Unless you're a child. In which case, it's great. Yeah, like Andy, you said it perfect. Like, it's movie by babysitting. You just throw this thing on. You don't have to think about your kids at all.
Basically, yeah. There's not much more I have to say.
I know. I'm running out of gas. Andy, would you recommend Moana 2?
So I would say that this is a perfect family film, great for the kids. It's the holidays. You want something to go see that's family friendly and, fun. It is not as good as the first film. It is still fine. It's not bad by any means. The visuals, I think, are the best part. It's some really striking things, some kind of scary stuff. There's some monsters in here, and I was like, I don't know if kids would be okay with this. But fun songs. Like I said, it'll be perfect for the DVD streaming market. So I would say if you are a huge fan of Moana and you want to check it out, probably for you. If you're a little skeptical, save it for streaming.
Yeah, I just don't think Moana does anything creatively fruitful. Like there's nothing here that is really worth the time. If you're a big Moana fan, you've probably already seen it, and if you just are in passing and you're curious, I would liken it more to a Disney direct-to-DVD sequel than I would like a proper film release. It's getting big numbers because of course it is, right? Like the market it's releasing in is favorable, but I don't know. It's Moana 2. It's fine. It's fine. It's a fine movie. Movie has a pulse, I think. And with that, we should jump into not a new section on the show, but something a little different, huh? Not just talk about films, but film trailers, the ads that come out in front of them it's the same segment we've always done. What do we call this segment, Andy?
It's time for the trailer park. Perfect. So we have a few trailers to bring. Two of them actually dropped today, and I was awake when the 28 years later drop. It dropped at like 2 a.m, and that's exactly when I saw it and watched it. And I sent it to everyone, and I'm sure I horrify people when they wake up and they have this trailer that I was sending text at 2 a.m. It was I was funny. Super excited about it.
I was on the opposite side of that. And I like the 28 Days movies fine. But I saw your text at 2 a.m. and was also up and looked at it for a second. It was 28 years later. And I opened it and it's a bit of action. And I was like, I'm too tired for whatever is happening in here, and just turned it off. And was like, I'll just watch it tomorrow morning. Like I can't soak up the vibes and I'm about to go to sleep. That's not right. But 3 trailers to talk about this week. First one on the list. It's not 28 years later, unfortunately. It's Disney's Snow White, which is, a trailer they've been sitting on, and I think we know why. Snow White stars is a retelling, of course, live-action retelling of the animated feature. This stars Rachel Zegler as Snow White, Gal Gadot as the witch, and a host of CGI characters as our dwarves. Boy, this movie does not look that good, Andy. It kind of looks like a CGI.
Looks real rough.
Bowl.
Real
yeah,
rough.
It looks real rough. And the theory was that it was going to be rough, so they were kind of sitting on it, and then a production still came out a while back, and it did not look that good. And Rachel Zegler's got like a weird bob that doesn't really work, and then like you see the dwarves and it's not good, and you're like, oh no, oh boy, oh no. I know this was made for around the cost of Little Mermaid. Right, this is speculating around $600 million. I don't know if this makes more money than live action Little Mermaid. I think it might make less money than live action Little Mermaid. But Andy, what do you think?
I think it looks really bad. Like it just visually looks bad. Like it looks washed out. It reminds me of the Pinocchio movie that went straight to Disney Plus with Tom Hanks, which was terrible.
Bob Zemeckis. Yeah, we watched that at your place. It was awful.
Yeah, this looks about that quality. Everything looks CGI. The dwarves look kind of scary. They're in this weird, uncanny valley where they didn't want to hire actual little people. There was a whole controversy about it. Peter Dinklage weighed in on it, but they didn't want to. They felt it was stereotypical, so they didn't hire any little people. But they do this kind of mocap thing, and it looks bad. It looks kind of scary. The whole thing looks terrible. I don't know if even Disney heads are going to be into this.
Yeah, I think, look, I have no doubt in my mind that Ziegler's given it her all. She's belting, like,
there are
I
songs.
totally believe that. Yes, I believe the people acting in the film are working at it. But, boy, like, so much of these movies is, like, blue screen, and you don't know what you're shooting against, and you're acting against a tennis ball, and then it's got to come together in post. And Disney, historically, is not very kind to its VFX studios, and kind of asks for stuff last minute, and we're going to rework this, and this doesn't work. I don't know. I think this lands pretty middling in the land of Disney live action adaptations. I don't think it's going to be a winner. I don't think it's going to really be a loser. I think it will be mid. That's what I think. What's next, Andy?
28 years later. So like I said, I saw this trailer at like 2:30 in the morning, which was not the time to watch it because it is profoundly scary. This is the long-awaited sequel to 2002's 28 Days Later, also directed by Danny Boyle and written by Alex Garland, like the original. This picks up almost 30 years later, where a colony of zombie survivors it looks like they've made a life for themselves on this island. It's safe. It has fortifications, but of course, at some points, zombies are going to break in or they're going to have to leave the island. And this trailer, I don't want to describe it too much, but man, it is really scary. It is really creepy. And usually it's hard for trailers to do that in such a short time. So I won't give too much away other than it's an excellent trailer. We see the stars Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ray Fiennes, and Jodie Comer. And Cillian Murphy is back as well. He was, of course, in the original alongside Christopher Eccleston and Naomi Harris. And that was kind of a turning point in the zombie genre because we had fast zombies. We had very kind of brutal violence happening, and it was a much different kind of zombie movie that we'd seen in a long time. So this looks really great. I can't wait to see it. This comes out June 20th of the summer, 2025.
Dude, it's crazy. I feel like anybody over the age of 35 like vividly remembers seeing like the DVD dual pack of 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later, like for sale around Halloween. Like they were pushing those things forever, right? Next to every other horror movie, right? Like those two movies were exciting and up and coming, and then they kind of fell out and we never heard anything. And like there was an idea that we might get 28 months later, but it never happened. And then the fat joke was like 28 years later, right? Like someday it's here. And surprise, Danny Boyle and Alex Garland are back for it. And surprise, Ray Fiennes is in it and Cillian Murphy's coming back. And surprise, they shot it on an iPhone 15. Like it's so wild looking. And what's interesting is tonally, it works. This is a good trailer. Like, oh boy, it might be heat, you know? Like I like the look of it. That iPhone 15 stuff, I know we joked about them having like a giant rig attached to it and whatnot, but when they need it, they can go lo-fi. It can look small. It can look simple like the visuals did in the original when they were shooting on like GoPros. It can look guerrilla. It can look authentic. It can look real in a way that other horror films don't. No Blumhouse movie looks like 28 years later, at least from what we've seen. So like for what's here, really great teaser. Can't wait to see more. I'm sure we'll get the whole plot revealed at some point soon in like a 3-minute trailer. Until then, 20 years later, looks like rock solid vibes. One more to talk about. Speaking of vibes, it's The Brutalist, baby. We got a full trailer for The Brutalist in glorious VistaVision. We have a plot. We understand what is happening in The Brutalist. I am so excited to talk about it. The Brutalist stars Adrian Brody as a middle-aged, I'm going to say, immigrant who's come back to America and is shoveling coal in Pennsylvania when he gets picked up by what appears to be some kind of architecture magnate. Rich man played by Guy Pearce who says, hey, you are a great architect and you've done great things. Why are you out here shoveling coal? Come with me, kid. I will give you opportunity. But you're also going to be a bit of my, organ grinding monkey and you're going to dance for me when I need you to. That seems to kind of be what's happening in The Brutalist. Felicity Jones also appears alongside Adrian Brody in what appears to be a romantic role. I think this movie just looks so neat, and I know it was shot for nothing, and I know it's 4 hours long, and it only cost $10 million to make, and it's going to be all people talking in rooms, but boy, oh boy, for all my hate on Disney in the opening segments, there's nothing I can ask for more, right? Like it looks like a great time. Andy, what do you think of The Brutalist?
This looks really interesting. And again, this is a 3.5-hour movie. It will have an intermission built in. And it's this grand immigrant story, again, played by Adrian Brody and his wife, played by Felicity Jones. And again, yes, they're discovered him being a working class person, being recruited, and what that means and what that entails. And we don't have a ton of details, but man, it looks fascinating. And I'm super excited for this as well. It reminds me of something like Killers of the Flower Moon, a big, long epic that's about the heart of America.
Yeah, and like notably an immigrant story, right? Like people coming here for opportunity and like finding out what this place is really like. Like that's exciting. It's an exciting setting, exciting time, exciting actors. Brutalist looks great. One more thing to talk about before we get to Interstellar 10th anniversary. Outside of trailers, something entirely unique, wholly different. We got some nominees for a recent award show. Andy, you want to introduce this?
Yes. So this is going to be our Death of Cinema segment, but also the noms came out yesterday, Monday, and a lot of surprises, some not so much. Amelia Perez got 10 nominations, more than anyone, set a new record. Some snubs, some winners. So we're going to go through this. Try to go burn through it fast because there's a lot of categories. Starting with best motion picture drama, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Nickel Boys, which we haven't seen, and September 5th, which we haven't seen. Zach.
Am I supposed to jump in with next?
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if you had any comments on.
Not really. No. I go ahead. I figured you'd just be teeing them up.
Okay.
We probably should have figured this out in the pre-show, but go on.
It's all right. Live production. So the main thing is most of these have not come out. The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Nickel Boys, and September 5th have not come out. Nice to see Dune Part 2 up there. Under Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy, Anora, Challengers, Amelia Perez, A Real Pain, The Substance, and Wicked. The Substance got several nominees, which was really exciting to see because horror is often overlooked. Wicked's probably going to be the big winner there.
I'm really glad to see The Substance at least pushing boundaries in whatever category it can get into. I don't have a lot of confidence it'll win. I think it's just too weird. Would be great. Might deserve it, but I don't know. I don't know if it gets over the line. I'm still glad to see people see it on here. I'm still glad people will see it and be like, Mubi, it's on some junk service I've never heard of. What's that movie? Like, hopefully somebody goes and watches it. Every eye we can get on that movie, the better. Best Motion Picture Animated. We've only seen a few of these. We've got Flow, Inside Out 2, Memoir of a Snail, Moana 2, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, coming out this January to Netflix, and The Wild Robot. A lot of fun. Out of what I've seen, probably Robot by a hair. Inside Out 2 is fun, but it's a fallacy of being a sequel. It's not original. Wild Robot is an adaptation of a book, but at least brings something to the table that is unique, and Lupita Nyong'o rocks, so, personal preference. That is until I see Wallace and Gromit. What do you think, Andy?
My choice would also be The Wild Robot, but I feel like the pressure will be on to give it to Disney. So it'll probably be either Inside Out 2 or Moana 2. Moving on to a strange category, which was introduced just last year, cinematic and box office achievement. This was a way to kind of cater towards kind of more popular films. But for this, we have Alien Romulus, Beetlejuice, Deadpool and Wolverine, Gladiator 2, Inside Out 2, Twisters, Wicked, The Wild Robot. This... You would think it would just go to whatever makes the most money, but it's not quite that way. But also, it's leaving off films that made a ton of money, but on a much smaller budget. Things like The Substance or Longlegs or even Terrifier, which Terrifier made $100 million off a $2 million budget. So it's kind of a weird category.
Yeah, it's hard to say what exactly we're picking here. If it's box office achievement, then you would imply the largest gains at the box office. But it could be a surprise, right? Like maybe something that you didn't think was going to do good did do good, like Terrifier or last year's Skinamarink. Like out of what's here, nobody really knows what we're picking. Like the Cinematic and Box Office Achievement Award is a really strange one. I think I don't know, Twisters. I like Twisters. That was unique. I'd throw Twisters on there. Like who knows? What category should I jump into next? Female actor in motion picture drama? Male actor in motion picture drama? Should I be? No, yeah. Pamela Anderson, The Last Showgirl, Angelina Jolie and Maria, Nicole Kidman and Baby Girl, Tilda Swinton in The Room Next Door, Fernando Torres and I'm Still Here, and Kate Winslet in Lee. I have seen so few of these movies. I'd like to see Baby Girl, but it's not out yet. Like the ones I have seen are cool, and the ones I haven't seen, I can't. I'd like to see The Last Showgirl, but it's not out yet.
Right. So again, there's like double categories because you have acting categories for drama and then also for musical or comedy. Same thing. Maria just came out, or I think comes out tomorrow on Netflix, and most of these have not been available anywhere or were only playing for about a week. I'm really interested to see Pamela Anderson in The Last Showgirl, which doesn't come out till January. That looks really interesting. And I've also heard that Nicole Kidman could be a front runner for Baby Girl. Jumping into I'm going to say in the same category, female, but for musical or comedy, Amy Adams for Night Bitch, Cynthia Erivo for Wicked, Carla Sofia Gascon for Amelia Perez, Mikey Madison for Anora, Demi Moore, The Substance, Zendaya for Challengers. Again, big win here for Demi Moore, getting in for The Substance. And the big win is not going to be if she wins this. It just means that her Oscar chances for getting nominated are much bigger with this kind of momentum. again, probably go to Cynthia Erivo for Wicked. She's definitely a big front runner.
Dude, I thought the drama category is normally stacked. It is weak compared to the female actor, motion picture, musical, or comedy. 4 of these are back-to-back bangers. You got Zendaya on the end for challengers. Demi Moore, Mikey Madison. Dude, come on. Like, who do you pick out of here?
Who do you
got
pick?
5 winners. Good Lord. And, of course, Amy Adams. Like, there's got to be a good one here somewhere. I'm sure she's fine. I haven't seen it. I haven't
5 stars
seen
and Amy Adams.
Male actors in a motion picture drama. We've got Adrian Brody for The Brutalist, Timothy Chalamet for A Complete Unknown, Daniel Craig for Queer, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, Ray Fiennes for Conclave, and Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice. Other than Sing Sing and Queer, and I haven't seen Timothy Chalamet, Complete Unknown. Well, I take it back. I was going to say I've seen 4 of these, but I haven't. I've just seen a lot of them.
Seen 2.
I've seen 2. Not awesome. I'm going to give it to... Oh, dude, it might be Stan by a nose. I like Fiennes fine in Conclave, dude. I really do. He's great. But like Sebastian Stan is doing something really cool in The Apprentice. And hey, nobody from Variety's Actors on Actors would talk to him. Not a single actor would talk to him. So he couldn't do it. So I guess.
Yeah, I'm really glad to see Sebastian Stan on this list. He's probably going to get ignored all of award season because no one wants to talk about his movie, which is about Donald Trump. People just want to avoid that and not comment on it at all. As far as front runners, I've heard Timothy Chalamet. It might be his year. Also, Adrian Brody, who actually won almost 20 years ago for The Pianist. I've also heard Coleman Domingo's incredible in Sing Sing, and Ray Fiennes has a great performance in Conclave. So it's hard to really say who's in the front of that. Moving on to male actor, musical or comedy, Jesse Eisenberg in A Real Pain, Hugh Grant for Heretic, another one for horror, Gabriel LaBelle in Saturday Night, Jesse Plemons for Kinds of Kindness, Glenn Powell for Hitman, and Sebastian Stan, A Different Man. Big story here, Sebastian Stan nominated in 2 categories for 2 different movies. A Different Man we haven't seen, but I've heard really great things. Heard Jesse Eisenberg is really good in Real Pain. We did see Hugh Grant give an all-timer in Heretic. Gabriel LaBelle seems like a stretch for me, as does Jesse Plemons in Kind of Kindness. It's a little bit of a stretch. Also surprised to see Glenn Powell in here for Hitman. A lot of people were raving about Hitman, and we just didn't think it was very good. But interesting nominations.
Dude, I feel great about glazing up Stan on that last category. But everybody get out of the way. It's Jesse Plemons' year. He's great in Kinds of Kindness. He probably won't get it because it's too weird like Substance. But, dude, he is great in that movie. Like, dude, Kinds of Kindness rocks. That's one I got to catch for my top 10 of the year. Let's get move to something big. Best Director, Motion Picture. I want to hear the big ones, huh? Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez, Sean Baker for Nora, Edward Berger for Conclave, Brady Corbett for The Brutalist, Coralie Fargeau for The Substance, and name I was not ready for, Paya Kapadia for All We Imagine Is Light, another film I also have not seen. Dude, everybody get out of the way for The Substance. Clear the roads. I know these are all good. These are all great movies. Dude, I was enamored by Substance. God, Substance is wild. Substance is like soft psychological trauma. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, so what? A few things here. Big wins for female directors, Coralie Fargeau and Payal Kapadia. A third of the nominees are women. That I think that's the first time that's happened. And again, The Substance got Best Director, and both the acting categories of lead actress and supporting actress with, I'm blanking on her name. Margaret Qualley. Thank you. Margaret Qualley. There.
I want to say Maya Rudolph for some reason, even though I couldn't have been more wrong.
The big, I think the big surprise here in the Best Director category is no Denis Villeneuve for Dune 2. Dune 2 only got 2 nominations, which seems pretty surprising. Although I did see something that said that they didn't really submit it for the Golden Globes, which is a nice way of saying they didn't really care about them. So it might be completely different when the Oscars come around. But it's stacked. I mean, Edward Berger is, again, he's great in Conclave. Sean Baker for Nora. We haven't seen The Brutalist, but I mean, we're super stoked for Coralie Fargeau and Payal Kapadia which is All We Imagine Is Light is an Indian film that's also in the international category. Heard great things about that. And of course, Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez.
I'm going to say, can we wrap this up with best original score? Do you want to talk about screenplay?
Yeah, best original score is fine.
Go for it.
Although that Coralie Fargeau also got a nomination for. Yeah, so Best original score, Volker Bertelmann for Conclave, Daniel Bloomberg for The Brutalist, Chris Bowers for The Wild Robot. The Wild Robot does have an excellent score. Clement Ducol for Amelia Perez, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross for Challengers. That is a great soundtrack as well. Hans Zimmer for Dune Part 2. Man, that's a tough category. That's more of like which way does the Academy want to go? Because I could see Challengers winning that. I can see they can go some more traditional like Dune Part 2.
I know, and I know Dune 2 is not getting its Oscars flowers because they said it can't get nominated there because it's just a reprise of the Dune 1 soundtrack, or certain parts of it are. That's what I heard anyway. In my heart, it's Challengers, dude. The Challengers soundtrack rocks and is exciting and is underrated. But that's Gold Globes. At least the film side. We don't talk a lot about the television stuff, but it's there if you want to check it out. I know the Globes are set to air, let's see, a Sunday, January 5th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Oh, yeah, on CBS and stream on Paramount Plus. If you got it, you can stream the Globes. Andy, you going to be watching this year?
No, I never watched the Globes.
No.
I'm trying to think. Do I have Paramount? I might be able to watch it. I have, or maybe it's Peacock. I don't know. I subscribe to something wherever I can watch Saturday Night Live.
You can do what I do. Just get on Twitter and keep hitting live streams and hoping one holds up long enough to like skate to the next one. Blue Sky, right. Whatever. With that, we should jump into our last film of the episode. Excited to talk about this one. Andy, before we do, bit of business between you and me. The listeners can hear this if they want. I guess I'm all right with it. Do we tell them about how our screening went first or at the end? Do you want to start with the film analysis or what happened in the theater on the day? I mean, what's...
Let me give the plot, the summary,
right.
The plot, and then we'll jump into our...
All right. You're right. Set the table for us, please.
Interstellar. So this was the 10-year anniversary re-release of Interstellar. Christopher Nolan's film, his sci-fi epic from 2014, which stars Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, and Jessica Chastain. I'm bad with names today. Jessica
Matt
Chastain.
Damon. Dude, we just did the Globe nominees. You're all right.
It takes place in the very near future is what it feels like, where Earth has kind of been decimated from war and famine. There doesn't seem to be a lot of people around there. Governments have collapsed. Everyone is growing corn, and that seems to be the only thing that will grow. The crops are just decimated by blight, the blight that keeps evolving and destroying crops, and humanity's kind of doomed. But weird things are happening at the Cooper household. Matthew McConaughey plays Cooper, a former Air Force pilot who's now farming and has 2 young children, Murph, a young daughter, and a young son, played by a very young Timothée Chalamet, who was no one at the time in 2014. Things aren't looking great. It's just not a great situation when weird things start happening at their house, and through a set of circumstances they end up at NASA, which they thought had disappeared, and they find out there's a mission to, through interstellar travel, find new worlds to live on. And they said, there's some people, aliens, something has put a wormhole out by Saturn. We've gone through it. We found some worlds, but we need another crew to go through and confirm that we can actually go there and possibly start a colony and also get everyone off of Earth. Matthew McConaughey's Cooper makes a very difficult decision to leave his family. He doesn't know how long it will be, but he knows it will be years. And they set off on this voyage along with Anne Hathaway's Dr. Brand into the beyond, to discover what these worlds have in store, if we can live there, and also try and save the people on Earth. It's an incredible epic. I've seen nothing like it. It was shot on IMAX, some of the biggest sound you've ever heard, incredible visuals. We did have kind of a disappointing moment in our screening, though. About 3/4 of the way, at a very pivotal moment, a speaker blew, the sound went out, and they were just not able to fix it, and we weren't able to finish the movie, and I ended up having to finish it at home on Blu-ray. But it was disappointing, but we still got to witness the majesty of IMAX in this movie.
Yeah, we don't talk a lot about spoilers. I know it's a decade-old film, but to keep it light, in case you are interested, our sound went out during the scene when Cooper is ascending to the Endurance towards the end of the second act and starting to spin his ship to match the Endurance's spin, so they
The
could mount
docking
the
scene.
airlock after a disaster has occurred. That was the scene it went out on, which is a bummer, man, because like that's a banger. And let me tell you, like as far as presentation goes. I was so locked into Interstellar and IMAX, man. I was so into it. I've seen this movie a handful of times. I've seen a lot of Nolan's movies a handful of times. Like I was driving to the theater and thinking, I'm excited about the format, but it's Interstellar. I've seen it before, and I could like confidently say that like IMAX so exceeded that feeling. Like seeing this movie in such a large format with such big sound, amazing. We saw it on film, the bit that we could at least, which was stellar, but you also get a bit of that flicker from the projector. You get a bit of that grain, which makes it feel really tangible and uniquely old for a film that is supposed to be set in a time when America is not doing that good and things are going wrong. Seeing a print of it is kind of special. It makes it feel like you're seeing almost something archival, which is a great setup for the opening of Interstellar. These sequences that I'd completely forgotten about with this documentary footage of these like older folks being like, yeah, I remember back in the war days, like it was dusty and we couldn't eat. Like, and then you cut to like the world of Cooper on the ground in the country where he's growing corn and things are not going good for his neighbors around him. Blight is affecting everything. Dust is everywhere. John Lithgow is living in his house. Things are not going good for the world of Cooper. So naturally ascending to the stars, where hopefully humanity can find purchase in a new place, is exciting, but he's got kids, right? He's got Murph and he's got young Timothy Chalamet, which also feels uniquely prophetic. Watching this now 10 years back, like, oh my God, there's Timmy Chalamet. That's that kid that's in Dune now. Like, it's all setting the table for like a really, really fun, full, exciting sci-fi adventure. Like, and it's so good. I can't get over how good it is. And when this came out in Nolan's filmography, it was 2014. He was doing the back-to-back Batman things, right? You remember he did Batman Begins, and then he did Prestige. He did Dark Knight, and then he did Inception. He did Dark Knight Rises, that last one, and then he did Interstellar. Then he takes a short break. He does Dunkirk, Tenet, and Oppenheimer. That's Nolan's filmography, basically. There's a couple others, Memento, Insomnia down there at the beginning. But this was coming at the end of his Batman films. So this was something new and original, and we knew it was one of his original ones, but we didn't really know what kind of energy it was going to have. And it is so satisfyingly a large-scale adventure. It's such a great world to jump into.
Yeah, interestingly, so this project actually started as a Spielberg film. He was attached to something of the same name in the mid 2000s. Eventually, he moved on to something else, and it came to Nolan's desk, and him and his brother Jonathan Nolan worked together on a script. And so the story ends up being a combination of several scripts, but he did tons of like scientific research, went to like Cal State and sat in on like science classes, studied, like worked with SpaceX. He wanted to get the science right, but also be enough for the audience to come along, because we have some really incredible sci-fi moments. We have a three-dimensional wormhole. We have a giant black hole called Gargantua that they're near. We have these differing planets and that they're going to try to land on and colonize and learn about. We have time dilation. It's some really cool concepts, and it's also mixed in with a more emotional story. You have that's kind of the big conflict. It's science versus kind of our emotions and how they have to kind of work together, and you can't have too much of one without the other, because some people, they just want to go and colonize and forget Earth. Earth is doomed. Everyone there is doomed. We just got to worry about the new colony. And other people's like, no, we need to still, like, those people still matter. And so that kind of dichotomy is part of what drives the story.
The first act has a funny transition into like the space section, and it works real good because Nolan is known for being a big ideas director, but when it actually comes to shooting on the day, he's a shut up and shoot it kind of guy. Most of the opening moments of Interstellar are handheld. Most of them are probably 2 to 3 takes. That's usually how they reported doing Oppenheimer and Tenet. Like everybody who worked on that movie was like, yeah, dude, he's like 2 or 3 takes and we're done. We're on to the next scene. Like, we're not wasting time. We're moving efficiently. Like, we are just shooting stuff. And it moves efficiently in the open. The mystery at the Cooper house is a little strange. And I recall like watching the movie and thinking I didn't really recall what was going on at the house with like gravity and Murph's bookshelf and what's happening there. And it like leaves a message. It doesn't really make sense. But like that all is good setting for us to get to NASA. And once we get to NASA, we have this great scene where Michael Caine is explaining to Matthew McConaughey that they have this mission. And then like the wall of the boardroom opens up into like the hangar bay where they're working on the rockets. So great, so silly, but cinematic. And it feels big and it feels bold. And all of that's perfect when we actually blast off to the stars and get up into space. It feels huge. It feels grand. It feels tense. And once you actually get out there into the stars, you hear like the creak and groan of this ship. This is humanity's last hope, their de facto Hail Mary. And like, it doesn't sound hopeful. And they're like getting into the hypersleep pods and Murph won't talk to Cooper and he can't get a message from his daughter. And it's like, well, we got to go to Saturn so we can get in hypersleep. You know, that's what we're doing. So it gets you where it needs to go in surprisingly simple fashion. And once you get off Earth and get up into the sky, like that's where the movie really opens up.
Yeah, the spaceship stuff is incredible, especially in IMAX, because it is so loud that it's just rumbling. You feel the sound more than you hear it because it's got these giant subwoofers that are just like rattling your brain. It's just an incredible moment. And I remember that's how it was in 2014. But yeah, the spaceship stuff looks so good. They built these incredible sets, lots of practical effects. That's when they use Nolan built this like mini IMAX camera that he could take into interior spaces so they could get the IMAX size film inside the spaceship. But that's the stuff that like, it feels like a ride. It moves. It's so big. It moves dynamically. They put an IMAX camera on top of a Learjet so they could get some of those shots of like the wing when they're out in space. And I don't know how high those ships fly, but they wanted you to feel like you were really there. Like he really creates the cinematic realism, and it's just some of the best sci-fi ever made.
Yeah, it's sci-fi that's informed by what's come before. Like just like how Tenet is a bit of a spy espionage James Bond sort of movie, if Christopher Nolan could make one his way. Like Interstellar is like a Star Trek episode or season, really. Like you get a full adventure here going to multiple planets, and there's wacky things going on those planets, right? One's covered in water and has giant waves. The other one's covered in ice and may have a surface level below those clouds, or maybe it doesn't. Like the mystery of what's going to be behind each new potential door, like really leans on the limited resources they have on this venture. Like they can't go very far. And after they try one planet and disaster strikes and they lose an incredible amount of time in this time slippage that was bonkers then and is still bonkers now, but I'd kind of forgotten is really impactful. Like you get this wonderful emotional scene with Coop getting like 21 years of messages all in 4 minutes, like, which is crazy. Matthew McConaughey, I think, won the Oscar for this movie, right? Like if I'm pretty sure him sitting in that chair is what bagged it. No? What did he win an Oscar for?
So this will, there are parts of this movie that don't work as well. The sci-fi part of it is incredible. The narrative ends up being a little weak. I see what Nolan was going for, but it was criticized for being a little bit over sentimental, and it tries to that be the heart of the movie, like the relationship between him and Murph, and it's just not quite as compelling. It was nominated for I think 5 Academy Awards, but they were all below the line things. So it was things like sound editing, mixing, score. It did win for visual. It was nominated and won for visual effects, but no, it didn't get best picture, best director, or any of the acting stuff. Which the acting is top notch, as is by Anne Hathaway, who's also in here as well.
That's so criminal. I really thought it had gotten more praise, at least from the Academy. I think that's probably due to its third act, right? It starts to get real surreal in Act 3. It gets real weird, and it comes back to that mystery in the open about these like gravitational fields in the Cooper house. And I think that can be satisfying, but for most people, like the real climax of this movie is hanging out in Act 2. When the sound went out in our theater, like when they've left a man's planet and they're climbing to the Endurance and have to try to match the spin of the station. Like that is where the music picks up. That's where it gets really bold. And I think that is, I don't want to say more memorable than the ending, but the ending of Interstellar is confusing. and it tugs at your
Yeah,
heartstrings a
there's a
little
lot
bit in a way
going
that I think
on.
people don't expect. And it's like, what's going on? Yeah, what's happening here? And it's visually incredible for sure. I posted a little bit about our screening on the subreddit when somebody had asked, "Hey, when did the Cinemark theater cut out that I was going to see this at?" I now I can't watch it, and I commented, "Hey, here's when it cut out. We were in the show." I got like 5 comments. People were like, "Oh, you didn't even get to the best part. Oh, you didn't even get to like the good part." And I hear that, but dude, the first 2 hours of that movie in IMAX were so great. I had such a great time. Like by the time it cut out, I wasn't even mad. I was so impressed that I had gotten to see something that felt so special. I wasn't particularly upset. I do feel for the people who have like planned day trips and stuff though. Like we had somebody in our theater that said they had driven in from out of town, hours in the car to come see this movie, and now have to spend hours driving back and didn't get to see the end of it. And that's painful. And I feel for that. But man,
Yeah,
like
that
the scale of this movie is so impressive.
that's how I feel. Like we got to see enough in IMAX. Even the stuff on Earth is done really well. Just the full IMAX size sections that we do see. Nolan loves to strap a camera to the side of a car. He does this in The Dark Knight as well, kind of an homage to that. But yeah, we get again their first big liftoff, them going through the wormhole, and then the visit to the first water planet, Miller's planet, where everything kind of goes really wrong, and that's an incredible sequence there. And that's we get the. I wanted to talk about this. We see their AI. They have these robots, Tars and Case, who are these very blocky mechanical robots, but that help them with run the ship and make calculations. And what's really great is that it doesn't do the AI is going to overthrow us or betray us. The AI is helpful the entire time and is in service to our human characters the entire time. Nolan purposely sidesteps any kind of like betrayal storyline like you would have in most sci-fi.
Yeah, I mean, even Cooper is skeptical in the open, but like eventually kind of comes around on it. In fact, characters have a funny relationship with technology in general here. I completely forgot about this opening scene in the first act when Cooper wrangles like a solar drone that's flying over and then mounts it to the back of his truck like a deer as he like drives Murph to school, and then has to like talk to the faculty there about her test scores and whether or not she'll be placed as a farmer like her brother or an engineer like Coop really wants. Like things are not going good in the world of Interstellar, and it couldn't be more apparent that like they got to get out of there. Something's got to change. This setup of Plan A and Plan B is very exciting. Like a large space station we're going to launch up into the sky versus like a bunch of cells that we'll just send to a colony and hopefully we'll make a bunch of people. Like I like that it feels like it addresses on the ground very realistically like how humanity might try to deal with these crises, that we either move ourselves out of here or we send what's left of us, and hopefully they can make something of humanity. You know, hopefully they can take a better swing at it. A lot of talk of bravery, of people going to the stars and sacrificing everything for humanity, whether or not love is a big player in that. Like ultimately it's such a good time, and I think these 10th anniversary screenings really do show like just how cool this movie is. And largely, like, I also wonder if there are any other directors who can get service to their filmography like Christopher Nolan can with IMAX. Like maybe it's just because he's been shooting on it a long time and he's been dedicated to the brand, but like it feels like almost any of his movies you could re-release in IMAX theaters and they would end up doing round the clock screenings. And I don't know what other director has that kind of pull in any theatrical capacity.
Yeah.
We could re-release Jurassic Park and do fine. Like, but
Yeah.
you could
Maybe
re-release
Dune, only because it's so big.
Villeneuve, yeah, for sure. I could see that maybe. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's
But
crazy.
that's one person and one film.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about the music, the score for this, which was nominated for an Academy Award. A score by Hans Zimmer, who Nolan has worked with on many films, from the Batman films, Inception, Dunkirk. And on this, he takes a unique approach, because he had done the Inception thing, which became this classic, very big sound thing. But he went a little bit different. It was very much inspired by 2001. Space Odyssey, which used the music of the Romantic composers, things like Strauss and Brahms, of course, the big 2001 theme, also Sprach Zarathustra, as well as the Blue Danube. he was inspired by that same kind of music, and instead writes music in those styles, but it's a little bit more modern, and it's Hans Zimmer doing it. And he also chose to use the organ as kind of the main instrument, because as space is kind of the final biggest frontier for humanity, the organ is kind of the biggest solo instrument there is. And so there's tons of organ use in this, and just an incredible score that highlights the drama of the film. Like when the score kicks in again, that's part of what makes the docking scene so good, is the music that's happening behind it. But just incredible score as well.
Yeah, and unforgettable moments. Like there's a reveal when a certain cast member shows up halfway through this movie that wasn't in any of the advertising, that I remember like sitting up in my chair. Like, I can't believe this person is in this movie. Did I not see them in the trailer? How did I? And then like, oh no, they explicitly left them out, so it would be a surprise to you and to everybody else when you watch it. Like little touches of cinematic magic still hold up great. And seeing things like Timmy Chalamet in the open like is nuts, because it's like it's like it was planned in advance. It's like you were meant to find it, you know, like it's like they always knew you were going to come back and check out Interstellar again. And like, I think that's so special. I think this is a really cool movie. I hope they do a 20th. I will go see it again in IMAX. Like, for what it's worth, for all the people I've heard joke about seeing Interstellar in IMAX and how great it is, which includes Dr. Draper here, who when I mock, I'm not mocking him. He rocks. But other people who are like, Interstellar in IMAX changed my life. Dude, it might have. Like, I might be one of those people now. It's nuts how good this movie is in IMAX. If you have the means, please go see it.
Yeah, it really is. And I saw it in IMAX in 2014 with a good friend of mine. And yeah, it was incredible then. Like the visuals, the sound. I'd never felt a movie as much as and Nolan is known so much for his sound. I criticize for it in a lot of ways. This is where some of you can't understand all the dialogue because the rockets are taking off and characters are talking, and he's like, yeah, I don't intend for you to hear it all. I intend for you to experience it like it might be to be on the ship. Where a good example of this is when one of the doctors, they're trying to warn someone over the comms, and he can't really hear it, but you know that he's being warned, and only if you go back and watch it with subtitles do you actually know what's said. But the feeling is there, the intensity, the urgency of someone is trying to warn someone else, and it doesn't really matter what they're saying. So that's what he's going for. Some people will criticize it, some people don't like it, but the sound design is just totally unique.
Yeah, Nolan has released like 4 major films since this one came out. 3 actually: Dunkirk, Tenet, and Oppenheimer. It's crazy that he's only done 3 movies since then. Like in 10 years, you'd think he would have done more, but they're big productions. And like, he clearly puts in a lot of work, like to be able to show up and shoot on the day and just put something together real fast. I don't know, man. I think this movie's special. I think it's really special. And I'm really glad I got the chance to catch it again. Shout out to Andy for catching very late tickets. I had looked to get this in IMAX early and couldn't get them, and you managed to find 3 to the one show that broke the whole damn thing, and I don't believe it.
Look at that.
So with that, Andy, would you recommend Interstellar?
I mean, absolutely. One of the best films of the 21st century. That's what I can't think of other movies from 2014 that I still think about today. Incredible sci-fi story, a big 2001 level epic, everything: score, music, design, visuals. The narrative kind of falls a little flat, or a little falls short by the end. Like its reach exceeds its grasp, doesn't totally work, but the ride is so incredible. Highly recommend if you can catch it in IMAX.
Yeah, Interstellar rocks. I enjoyed it so much, I was thinking about, as I was leaving the theater, buying the Blu-ray for my dad, even though I'm sure he's probably seen it before, just because I'm like, no, this is a good one, though. Like, this is a film you want to have on the shelf. Like, Interstellar is great. If you have the means, please go catch it again in this re-release. If you can catch it in IMAX, do. If you can catch it in 70 millimeter, great, but I'll bet the digital presentation also looks awesome. And you don't have that projector flicker. So, it ain't so bad, honestly. Digital is probably just as good. So please go check it out. This movie rocks. I can't give it its flowers enough. I'm excited to talk about it when it comes around again. And other screenings, by the way. Like, now that we got a fat Interstellar screening out making money, like, let's get these other ones in theaters. We'll hold off on Dunkirk. I don't think that one's going to do as good. Maybe a Tenet show again. Could be. Probably going to be a 10th anniversary, which next year would be nothing exciting.
5.
I'd love Prestige someday. Miss Prestige could get a 20-year in 2 years, because that came out in 2006.
Wow.
Maybe. That wouldn't be an IMAX, though. I don't think he shot any of that movie in IMAX, but whatever. Anyway, that's the show. Good Lord. Episode 275 off script. Done and behind this already. Dusted. We've done it. Andy, what are we watching next week?
So coming this week, this Friday, December 13th, Kraven the Hunter, which has been delayed several times. This was supposed to come out back in October. That's, of course, stars Aaron Taylor Johnson as Kraven the Hunter as part of the Sony Spider-Man universe, which I actually just read today. This is the last film in that. They're stopping this Sony Spider-Man universe after this movie, or maybe they're going to reboot it with something different. We'll be looking at another TBD movie, probably something streaming. Also, we'll be back with our top 10 of 2024, as well as our top 5 of the decade, because we're halfway through it all already. Some FYI releases. Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim also comes out this Friday. That is the animated Lord of the Rings film. And September 5th is also on the calendar for release. We'll get around to that one eventually. And some upcoming things: Sonic 3, December 20th, along with Mufasa, the Lion King, and of course more on Christmas Day. But Kraven the Hunter and TBD and top 10 next week.
I got to shift my thinking around Kraven the Hunter, because we're going to see it and we're going to talk about it on this podcast, but I'm not sure I'm excited to see it. And I need to change my mindset and get into a space where I feel like I like it more, because right now I'm just not very, I don't know, I'm not very enthusiastic. Maybe the memes will be hot. War in the Rohirrim, I hear, is not as maybe spicy as New Line had hoped. And dude, the Sonic 3 versus Mufasa fight, it's probably going to go Mufasa's way, but I feel like that meme of like Dexter's Laboratory, he's like crying into his school locker with a picture of Sonic on the side of it, like, stunt on him, King. Like, please do good. We'll see. If you like what we're doing here on the show, best way to keep up with us is subscribe to Off Script Film Review on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube. You can follow us on social media. We're in all the usual places: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We're on YouTube. Big things going on YouTube. Come check us out over there, along with our individual reviews. Social media, I already plugged it. Our audio stuff, we love our audio, folks, even though I'm mentioning you here at the end. Normally it's the beginning, I think. Sometimes it's jumbled. Honestly, it's a mess by the time I get here. Spotify, Google Play, iHeart, iTunes, of course. Thanks for checking us out over there. If you're one of our listeners, started with our listeners. We always end with our listeners. Y'all are the best. And, website, mail at offscriptfilmreview.com is our email to correspond with us directly, and offscriptfilmreview.com is your home for all kinds of resources off script. Keep up with me and Andy. Check out what we got going on, other interviews, things Andy's doing on the side. Worth checking out. In my humble opinion, I think you should go slide on over. Maybe drop a like where you can. And that's Off Script, episode 275. Good Lord. What a whirlwind. This is one of the longest ones we've done in a minute, Andy. Like, I know. Hour 16 here. Good Lord. Anyway, from all of us at Off Script, the home of both cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.